So here's another perspective to share with you and explore with you and invite you into discovering, what's this like? What's it like to experience reality in this way? One that's quite counter to our typical way of thinking about what's going on. And this is a chapter in the book called The Constant Hum of Being. And as I read, I'll probably invariably stop and just sort of unpack um, what I'm writing about. So we'll see how far I actually get. The constant hum of being. I'm often highlighting the way in which experience has no stability. The fact that what appears constantly slips away. A perception arises and then it's just gone. It's impossible to hold on to what we call the moment, owing to its complete lack of stability. I mean, that right there is worthy of much experiential contemplation because it upends this other deeply believed in vantage that we can actually grasp hold of the moment and know it, label it, identify it, describe it, right? However, when we look, we can discover, wow, there's this other way again to see this, to encounter this, right? That has a different feel to it, a different implication. It's as if the rug is always being pulled out from under us. Experience is just gone, gone, gone. The moment literally here for no time at all because of its shape-shifting nature. As the moment arises, it is literally turning into something else. I mean, this is both like mind exploding and trippy as well because it's like if you could imagine, I'm trying to imagine an image to capture this, and it's very difficult because it's an image. What I want to try to convey is an image that's not an image because it never becomes a clear image. So if you could imagine, um, how can I describe it? If you were watching a form, some image of something that seems to be taking form, and as let's say it seems to be taking the form of what we call a triangle. Like we know that, right? A triangle with the three sides, right? We know what that form looks like. So there's this, let's say you start off with a line and that line starts to assemble itself in a way that is suggestive of a triangle, but before it takes a definite shape, before it stops as a given shape that you could go, oh yeah, there's the triangle, I can identify it. It keeps moving. And so for a second, a flash second, it's kind of like a triangle, but then it starts to reshape itself. And then it looks like it's starting to become a square. But it never quite becomes a square. Why? Because it's moving. And then it shapes itself again, seemingly reshapes itself, and it starts to look like a pentagon, but not quite. Because why? Because it keeps moving. That's what I'm talking about. Is like as it's seeming to become something, it's becoming something else and then becoming something else, but never landing somewhere. It's astonishing, isn't it? That our experience is like that. It's different, isn't it? We know the other perspective very well. Like here I am sitting here, like it's landed as being like that's the triangle that I just described, or the square or the pentagon, right? Here I am sitting here. I just described the shape of the moment, but the moment's alive, isn't it? It would seem dynamic. And what is the shape of the moment? As a moment arises, it is literally turning into something else. That's what I mean. I've had people ask me this question before, and I'm kind of going to attempt to answer it in a moment. But the question goes something like, well, I get what you're saying, but like logically, if the moment never resolves as something, right? Because it's constantly becoming something else, how is it that there's anything showing up at all? Like, well, how is there even this thing called experience? Like, that makes no logical sense. And there's no explanation. I would say there's no explanation for that. Because, yeah, logically speaking, there shouldn't be anything that's being perceived. Because what we call a moment that could be perceived is not here as an identifiable moment for any length of time because of this dynamism, right? So I guess you could say, well, we're seeing the dynamism, but that again is reifying something and turning it into a something, you see? So I say, as the moment arises, it's literally turning into something else. In that sense, there's no moment here that could be identified. But what's very interesting is that despite the ever vanishing nature of what appears, experientially, there's this sense of something still being here, something remaining. Like it's seen, this the sense is something's always here. Even if we can't pin that down as a thing, right, that we can identify, there's a sense of, and that sense is just complete inconstancy, discontinuity, right? No continuity, no enduring nature to anything. That's the a Buddhist notion of impermanence. But yet there still seems to be this sense that something's always here, right? Like, here it is. And it's still here, and it's still here, and it's still here. But there's not an it, right? So what's here? Experientially, there's this sense of something still being here, something remaining. What is that that seems to continue to be here despite reality's constant slipping away? Well, it's certainly not our thoughts, right? Those aren't remaining. A thought appears and then whoosh, it's gone. And then another thought may appear and whoosh, it's gone too. Like, so they don't remain. That's not the constancy. Same with emotions. They arise and then they disappear. They have no enduring nature. They are not what remains. Sounds, sensations, same thing, right? Even as they arise, they are in a process of constant disappearance. And yet, despite all this coming and going of experience, we have this sense still of something remaining, something always being here. What is that? As I always am doing, the invitation when I'm reading something like this, the invitation, I keep inviting you to look in your experience for the answer to the questions that I'm posing. What is that? Feel the sense of something being here, simultaneously the sense that what's here is always vanishing. But again, that sense of the constancy of something being here, feel that. Let's say you've been listening to this chapter for the last couple of minutes. Where is that time? It's gone, isn't it? Isn't that just amazing? Like how what was here a second ago is gone forever. I mean, you can feel like the way memory can kind of go back, like, oh yeah, a second ago or the last minute. Like I can kind of go back in memory and like relive that seemingly. But that, of course, is not happening in the previous moment. It's happening now. So whatever now is. But a second ago or a flash second ago, instant ago is completely gone forever. What you experienced in the last second, gone. In the last half second, the last quarter of a second, the last one millionth of a second, gone forever. So again, with nothing remaining, how is it that there's this sense of something still being here? If it keeps getting swept away by, if reality keeps sweeping itself away instantly, in the instant of its arising, it sweeps itself away. What's the sense of something always being here? I mean, it's truly, let's just say a magical paradox, I guess. Everything is vanishing and yet something seems to remain. What is that? Well, while there's really no word for it, maybe the simplest, most straightforward word we could use to point to this that remains is being. Everything disappears, and yet there remains this sense of being, the sense that something is. That's what I mean by being. It's not a particular feeling, because again, feelings come and go. It's not a particular thought about being or sensation of being. It's just this sense that something is. You could say it's the positivity of reality, not in the sense of evaluative. I don't mean the word in an evaluative way, like it's positive versus negative. I mean positive in its being here. Here, like this may be vanishing every instant in that sense. There's nothing here. And yet, here is here, right? Here is here. Whatever this is, dream, mirage, material world, some kind of hologram being created by some extraterrestrial artificial intelligence I mean, whatever it is, the sense of here-ness, that's what I'm talking about, the being, the sense of here-ness, that never goes away, does it? You can bank on that. In classical Indian music, there's an instrument, the tambura, that provides a drone accompaniment for the other instruments, such as the sitar, the flute, or the voice. The drone of the tambura just keeps sounding, no matter what all the other instruments are playing. It's a lovely metaphor for the constancy of being. The drone just keeps playing. The drone of something's here. It may be constantly changing, but it's still always here, paradoxically. All the thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, all of them constantly coming and going, arising and passing away. And all the while, the constant hum of being plays on. Not, some people might disagree with this perspective. This is the way I see it and experience it is I'm not talking about two different things. Like, oh, there's all this coming and going, and then there's some whatever substrate or background space that's unchanging and always here. I don't mean it that way. I don't I don't experience it. I don't experience being two different things. It's a sense of this that's constantly disappearing is at the same time always here. It's not two different things, it's one thing. And that's particularly it makes it kind of odd. I guess odd feels very natural because it's our experience. So I don't maybe odd's not the right word. All this arising and passing away, and all the while the constant hum of being plays on. Experience is ever vanishing, yet the simple feeling of being remains rock solid, stable, always here, always present, even if all it gives rise to, the myriad expressions springing forth, have no stability whatsoever. So it's completely unstable, and yet it's the only stability. This constant hum, the drone of being, always changing, and in that sense, absolutely no permanence, yet always here, never disappearing. I mean, try to make it go away. Try to make here go away. I mean, get out of here. Here. Get out of here here. It's like you can't make it go away. It's like I remember writing this, I think it was in my first book, like It's like a trick birthday candle. You know, you try to blow it out and it keeps relighting itself. It just won't go away. It's so funny, you know, like I talk about this all the time. Like, I'm going to practice getting really good at being here. Okay, let's flip that around. And I'd like you to try to not be here, right? I try to make the here-ness, as I said, go away. And that trick birthday candle, it's not even that you just can't even blow it out at all. It's not like you blow it out and then it relights. It's like you cannot blow it out. I mean, it's you and everything. Now, we may hear this always being here, this here-ness. We may hear this and then try to locate the sense of being. Like, okay, this sounds really intriguing, this stable, ever-present here-ness, beingness, isness. Now I'm going to try to like, okay, now I'm going to try to find it. Right? You see the tricky thing about this? Try to grab hold of it, what? As a particular experience. Ah, finally, I'm really in touch with the sense of being that he's talking about. But then what invariably happens to that experience of being in touch with the sense of being is that what? It invariably goes away. That's the nature of any supposed state to not remain. As experience, the sense of being will disappear, just as all the experiences you've ever had have vanished. However, the being that I'm describing is not a particular experience, but really the basis of every experience. So as you're sitting here right now, just, I mean, notice this again, like look in your experience and notice the impossibility of holding on to any experience. Like try to hold on. Here's this perception, try to hold on to it. It just poof, just gone, right? You can't hold on to any of your experience. You can't hold it in place. You can't keep it from transforming. So it has no stability, right? And yet, the beingness of the moment, the isness is net you can't get rid of it, right? It's always here, always here. And yet you can't hold it. You can't put it in a box and say this is what it is because of that dynamism. You feel that? There's a saying in the Zen tradition, I think it's in the Zen tradition. Well, good description of reality. Always being, always becoming. That's what I'm talking about. Always being, that's the constancy. Always becoming is the inconstancy. And it's one thing that always is, and yet it's constantly changing, right? Like, does not compute here for no time at all as as an it that is a particular way, right? But because it's like this, this is constantly changing, but here it is. So it's unchanging stability as it always remains itself. This, it never departs from that, right? The ocean, again, is a very simple metaphor for this because the ocean, even in its quieter, stiller moments, less tumultuous moments, is still got a fluid dynamism to it, doesn't it? Right? So it's never one particular way. So you can't say what the ocean is. You can't say how it is. You cannot say what it is and characterize it in any kind of definitive way because it's always changing its shape, right? And yet it always remains itself despite that. So it never changes. It is always the ocean. And we could say life is always life, or being or existence is always existence, even though you cannot say how that is or what that is at the same time. feel that, the constancy of being. I mean, a better way to say that would be just notice that that's what you're always feeling is the constancy of being. That's constantly changing and yet is constantly being. That's a much better way to say it than sort of set you up to try to find a particular state of being in touch with being. It's just like this is what's happening. The happening of reality, which is undeniably the case, regardless of whether it's a virtual reality or a real reality or a dreamed reality or whatever, the evidence of something being here is unmistakable, right? It's what we've got. You know, it's the only thing that's the only show in town, right? It's this show, the show of reality. And it's just happens to be, would seem to be one that doesn't have a an off switch. It doesn't have a stopping. And that's its indescribability that you can't put your finger on it.